Thanks for joining me for another week of Wide Open Throttle. Today we're going to start by addressing some of our viewers' comments and questions regarding our testing procedures. Carlos, you recently tested the Ferrari FF and you did so in a way that veered from kind of the standard ignition format, and it drew a lot of attention and people wanted to know where are the testing numbers we've begun to rely on.
Yeah, well there's two things that happen there. The first is we do 52 episodes of ignition a year. And if every single one of those is going to the test track and then driving it some beautiful mountain road, as nice as that is, it does get kind of tiring. So every time we get to change it up, we will, just for the sake of making it interesting. And then number two, with the FF, we were actually planning on doing that kind of episode, getting one in LA, testing it, driving it, talking about it, and this opportunity came up to drive it on ice in Colorado. I definitely want to do that. Mm-hmm. That's a no-brainer. I mean, it's an all-wheel drive Ferrari. I mean, why wouldn't you want to drive that in the snow? That we didn't get test numbers, I'm okay doing that because we're going to try to do that later.
Testing is one of the core things, the core values of Motor Trend. It's what we do, it's what we've done for 60 years. We will always endeavour to test every vehicle on the market, but there's a lot of logistics involved and not always possible to get those logistics to sometimes where the cars are. They don't always come all to us. We have to go to them, and that could be around the world, it could be in Europe, could be in Africa, could be wherever.
Also, viewers should rest assured that if there's something they wanted us to do with the car that we didn't do, we probably have bigger, even better plans for it coming. So,
definitely.
Patience.
Well, and testing, and there is a limit also to cars. I mean, we always get, well, where's the Veyron?
Yeah, where's the Veyron?
I think if you go to Pebble Beach weekend and you look around,
that's where the Veyrons are. Yeah.
You'll see, I think it's something like 5% of all the Veyrons that are ever built are in one place. I mean, they are such rare cars. There's 300 odd cars, and that's all they're going to build. And they don't grow on trees. In the early days, there were no such things as press fleets. For some automakers, they don't have a huge fleet of cars.
I ran into Christian Koenigsegg, and he's standing there with the Agera R, and I said, oh, we'd love to test this thing. He goes, great, come to Sweden and test it. And I said, well, how are we going to get to Sweden? He goes, well, just show up. It's hard to just show up, so.
Koenigsegg is one we'd like to do, and you do have to go there to do it. Yeah. I want to test cars that meet crash regulations, meet emissions regulations.
Right. You want series production. So in other words, everyone coming off the line is the same as the one before and after. You don't want, well, this one, somebody built it, then he left, and now this one's different, it's got different kits, it's got different suspension. You want the same car, so it means something.
Still, I want to go to Sweden and test that.
I got Christian's
I'll raise my hand. All right, let's do it.
Let's send him a Veyron. Has to be with a Veyron.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to move on to a story that's gaining a ton of buzz on our site. Cadillac just announced that the 2014 Cadillac CTS is going to have an optional 3.6-liter twin-turbo V6. It's going to produce 420 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque, and this is only the CTS, not the CTS-V, so serious play by Caddy.
For sure, and I think with what Cadillac is doing is similar to what Audi has done with their S models and then the RS, where the new S models are as good as the old previous RS. And then with the CTS moving bigger, just more competitive, with 5 Series, E-Class, it has to offer more power, better engine.
Well, this is like something you and I have talked about a million times. Like the Germans have already written the roadmap. Just follow it.
Just copy it.
So the E-Class, right? You can get a V6 and you can get a V8 and then there's the AMG. Well, this is still a V6, but it's twin turbo. So you get your V6 CTS, you get the power of a V8, 430 pound-feet of torque is power of a V8, and then they will do a CTS-V. So they're just, doing finally what the Germans have been doing, and totally smart.
One of the readers wrote on our message board, it was an anonymous comment that reads, it's important to keep in mind who the CTS is competing with. This will go against the 550i, the E550, the S6, all these cars have V8s. Not giving the CTS a mid-level V8 is a huge mistake. Do you agree?
Everybody else seems to be downsizing.
Yeah.
It seems to be the right play. You get the right power. I mean, you're getting over 100 horsepower per liter out of this engine. That's great in my book.
And this person might be anonymous because he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, that the E550 is going bye-bye. The E400 is the new, with the twin-turbo V6.
Well, I was in Germany a couple of years ago, and with BMW, and he said, look, we've stopped working on developing V8 engines. Right. We'll end up with one V8 engine for the BMW range. But we're not going to do multiple variants of V8s because we need to get more efficient engines. So they're downsizing. You'll see more 6 cylinders, more 4 cylinders with turbocharging, and that's a trend. There'll still be a V8, but they'll be for limited applications in limited markets. The real mass of volume, even in S-Class 7 Series size vehicles, is going to go to 6-cylinder engines, not V8 engines. So, this Cadillac's actually right on trend here for once.
I want to point out that just because the CTS isn't launching with a V8, I know, talking to some of our sources, that the ATS and the Camaro and the CTS, they made sure that they can all take V8s. There still is room for like a Corvette engine in there.
Oh, absolutely.
So
there's always room for Corvette engines in anything.
Suffice it to say, we're all excited to see the CTS in New York. In fact, when you guys see this, we will be there bringing you live coverage. The New York show, of course, signals the end of the auto show season, which is always a good time to sort of take a look at the state of the auto industry and the directions in which we think different automakers are heading. So who do you have your eye on?
Well, I think Ford. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I've got some interesting issues with Ford in that they've walked away from having premium brands. They got rid of Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, all those brands. They now have to rely on the blue oval, and they're trying to resuscitate Lincoln, which is going to be a long, long task. In the meantime, we're seeing some, sporty new Fords, the Focus STs.
Yeah, Carlos's
What's really
favorite
interesting
car.
is they're filling all these weird enthusiast niches, with the SVT Raptor, with the Focus ST, now the Fiesta ST. Great way to do it if it makes business sense. I don't know if it does or not, but I'm happy.
Well, it only seems weird because we're not used to it, perhaps, because Ford, it was interesting, if you were in Europe looking at what Ford always offered, they always had a healthy, performance portfolio. You came over to the States and it was like dull, boring. There was the Mustang, but even that could barely get out of its own way in some iterations. And Tauruses, there was the show, then that went away. There was nothing here for the enthusiast. It was commodity motors. Now this is more like what Ford's European footprint is like. Much more fun.
Yeah. And we know they can build great cars. I mean, you look at the Raptor. That's, to me, as impressive as any production car in the world. You haven't stopped talking about the Focus ST in 6 weeks. Yeah,
that's a wonderful car.
Yeah, it would be interesting if they could translate that quality and passion into Lincoln.
That's going to be the real struggle. I think it's going to be a long time before we see anything on that. I mean, Ford is, 15 to 20 years behind Cadillac in resuscitating the Lincoln brand, and even then, what do you do with Lincoln outside the United States? Nobody knows it. Right. Everyone's vision outside of America of Lincoln is it's the car Kennedy was in when he was assassinated, but that's it.
What do we think about the BMW-Mercedes rivalry? BMW has historically been kind of the enthusiast choice. Is the gap narrowing?
I think BMW right now is kind of in a holding pattern, it seems. Like there's kind of no real new product coming. Mercedes is, man, they're pumping them out. We're going to have CLA 45 at New York. This will be a huge car for them. The new E63 with 4MATIC and 500.
The new S-Class interior. I mean, it looks ready to take the game right up to Audi.
Yeah, I think Mercedes is really encroaching on BMW's old territory.
Well, that CLA 45 is going to be a very interesting car. I mean, I saw the hatchback version in Europe, and it had a racing stripe. It had a red spoiler. It had the black wheels with the red brakes. I mean, it looked like a boy racer car with a 3-pointed star on it.
And they're getting more power per liter out of that 2-liter than McLaren gets out of their V8. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I still want to find out how, because I just have a hard time believing.
There's a guy, Tobias.
What is he like? This magic come out of his fingers or something?
He's a head of development. I mean, this is a guy where we're talking, and I said, what do you think of the 458 Italia? He goes, wow, it's a very good car. I just hired 6 people from Ferrari. So like, he's very serious.
And BMW has, don't forget, got 750 brake horsepower per litre out of the BMWs, more than that, out of the 1.5 litre BMWs with 1,000 horsepower.
For a race.
1,500 horsepower.
For a race.
It's still
those were production blocks though. They just took old 3 Series blocks, X-rayed them to make sure they weren't cracked, put a 98mm turbo on it, and went F1 racing.
Well, I remember having a wonderful lunch with Paul Rocher at a Monaco Grand Prix one year, and Paul was the genius behind these engines. And I said, so, how did you know when you got to the limit of the engine? Because there was so much power, they couldn't dyno the engine on their own dynos. They had to do 1-cylinder versions and then sort of extrapolate up. So I said, how do you know when you'd exceeded the limit? He said, it's very simple. We just blew the crankshaft out the bottom of the engine and dialed it back.
When you're at the limit, when you have to do a powertrain warranty for 6-8 years, I don't know what the current Mercedes warranty is, and you're getting 170 horsepower per liter out of it, if you can do it, wonderful. That's great, but I'm still like cautious.
But how many people drive around at wide open throttle all the time?
Nobody.
Besides Carlos.
All the time, every day.
But it's not going to be making 360 horsepower most of the time. Most of the time, people are going to just go to work, get on the freeway, sit in traffic. So it's kind of brilliant to offer that much.
But this is exactly the sort of car that Mercedes-Benz should be building. You know, the company has a proud history of technology, of racing, of really pushing the envelope in vehicle design and engineering. And so a road car that does 170 brake horsepower per litre is exactly the sort of car those guys should be building, and will bring them within the reach of a younger audience too, that can really relate to that sort of technology. We talked earlier about engines getting downsized and smaller, and you know there are all sorts of people who go, oh me, oh my, it's the end of performance as we know it. You know, people were saying that when emission controls came in 40 years ago, and here we are with more 500 horsepower cars on the market right now than at any time in history.
And more 600 and more 700 and more 900.
So, you know, I think the future of performance is very bright. If you're talking about a trend, it's not going to go away.
To the future.
Yeah.
Okay, cheers.
Wide open throttle.
Yeah.